Hi, everybody. Hi, my beautiful empath sisters, and maybe a few brothers who will jump on this Facebook Live. I'm Janice Masters, the Shaman Mama from janicemasters.com, and I'm going to be talking about tips for managing anxiety in these times. We're all dealing with crisis challenges right now, which really weren't expected. I think some of us who have been tuned in spiritually might have been expecting some kind of challenge to pop us forward in terms of the tipping point of consciousness, but couldn't have predicted this. At least I couldn't have. So I want to start by, I've got a lot I want to share with you, a lot. But I want to start with, for those who have already joined and those who will be joining, let's start with a great big deep breath or two or three, okay? We have to acknowledge that we might be kind of up here energetically, and the reason I'm doing this is because all of us are dealing with a certain level of anxiety. So, deep breath with me, okay? In and out. And let your shoulders drop when you exhale, okay? Another big deep breath in. And drop your shoulders. And one more. Make it a big one. And great. I want to thank all of you who have already jumped on and those who will jump on. I'm going to do something a little different with this Facebook Live. I'm not going to mention your names as you jump on. I hope that you're okay with that. It really seems to interrupt the process a bit, but I do appreciate it. And I also want you to, I really want this to be about what you need today, because I have so much to share about managing anxiety, which I'll explain in a minute, but I really, really want this to be about what do you need? What are your concerns? So in the comments, please start writing what your questions and concerns are. I'm going to be checking on my phone over here and writing down what I can of what you post, okay? First thing I will tell you is that professionally I've been working with empath women for over 40 years. First as a psychotherapist for 22 years, and more recently for the last 18 years as a spiritual life coach. And I've loved every single minute of it, and I still do. Excuse me. The other thing I will tell you about myself is that I could have been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. I had what they diagnosed as a nervous stomach as a kid. I always had a tummy ache I called it a tummy ache, but it was solar plexus pain, which is where I still get hit with anxiety when it arises. And then later in my 20s, when I was faced with a major spiritual awakening challenge, because I was at a turning point in my life, had grown up going to Catholic schools, got married on a timetable, and had a baby, and then moved away from my hometown, which really blew everything open in terms of freedom. So I'm faced with this awakening challenge, and I didn't know any better, so I was resisting what wanted to happen. And as a result of that resistance, I developed panic attacks. Really, really bad, scary panic attacks. Okay. Karna says, how to calm the body down. Yes. Making a note of that. Absolutely. Because, look, our emotions are felt in the body. They may start with a thought, but they are felt in the body. So that's a really, really great piece for us to deal with. That's a little bit of my history. I overcame those panic attacks in a pretty miraculous way because a friend of mine sort of dragged me. I had been reading a lot of Eastern literature and philosophy and religion, and a friend of mine took me to the local TM center in DC to learn transcendental meditation. And I wasn't looking to it to stop my anxiety. I just I thought it would be cool. I thought it would be great. I thought it would be helpful. But just 8 weeks after practicing TM twice a day regularly, as directed, I realized, hey, I haven't had a panic attack. And that was, I was 25, ooh, that was like 50 years ago, and I have never had another panic attack, okay? So that is one of the things that I teach my clients when they're interested in, is the secular version of TM. But you know, there are ways to manage anxiety, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So again, I want this to be about what you need. So whatever your questions and concerns are about how to manage anxiety, please write them in the comment box. I'll be checking on my phone to see what your, is this coming up? Okay, well, maybe I won't be checking on my phone. Let's see. Yeah, okay, well, I'll be just looking in this comment box here. Calm the body. Yeah, entire upper body is quivering. Yeah, body trembling is definitely something that happens. And I'm going to talk about that. Okay, so that's enough about me. I want to tell you that if you go to my blog after this call, which is just janicemasters.com/blog, you will find a lot of articles that I've written dealing with the topic of anxiety, particularly for empaths, okay? There are 3 in particular which I will post in comments after the call that I want you to look for in particular. One is called Caring for Your Heart in Turbulent Times. Another is called, and this is one I post pretty often, it's a kind of a popular one, The Gift of Rolling with the Flow of Natural Cycles, and Recovery from Anxiety, Tips from Someone Who Did. That would be moi, okay? The first one is on page 30 of the blog, the second one, no, on page 8 of the blog, the second is on page 30, and the third is on page 31. But again, I'll post the links to those in comments. So let's just talk about what anxiety is. Now, you might have been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder at some point. Like I said, I could have been. I wasn't, because I didn't go to ask. But so you might have been, or you can view it just as a normal part of life when stress is higher than normal. And let's face it, right now with the coronavirus crisis, the challenges are enormous. We are isolating ourselves, hopefully, all of us. I know my family is. We're not going anywhere, and nobody's coming in here. We've had some grocery deliveries, but we wipe down everything when it comes in the house, before it comes in the house, actually. So there's the stress of the lifestyle change, and let's kind of level the playing field, okay? Any kind of change, even if it's positive change, is stressful. Anything that rocks the boat of the status quo is stressful. Okay, so these are some of the symptoms that you might experience. Okay, you might feel restless. You might have trouble concentrating. You might feel muscle tension. You might realize, oh my gosh, my shoulders are up around my ears. Okay, you could have difficulty sleeping. Your heart could be pounding, or you could have palpitations. That's something that I experience sometimes. You could sweat. You could be shaking and trembling, as people have mentioned. You could have a feeling of absolute dread that kind of rises up in you. And you can have full-blown panic attacks. Okay? And you can add other symptoms that you might have experienced in the comments as well, if you like. Here's the thing. Right now, we're going to talk about anxiety, but before we do that, I want to talk about the fact that we are in grief right now. We have experienced the loss of a way of life, the loss of taking our health for granted, the loss of the freedom to move around in the world, okay? Every single loss triggers grief. And when big grief is triggered, like right now, it also triggers all of the unresolved grief that we have not dealt with from our past losses. So think about that. So whatever grief we're feeling about the loss of the changes right now, it's also bringing with it a wave of unresolved grief. So it's also, excitingly, a time of transformation. I do believe that we will come out of this with some societal and economic differences across the board that we can't even predict. Maybe some of them we can predict, but I was talking with my neighbor over the fence yesterday. We had our chairs about 15 or more feet apart. And she said, what I see happening is that so many people are working remotely. Number one, employers are going to get much more comfortable with people working remotely, that they can trust their people to do that. There are going to be fewer cars on the road, which is going to mean fewer emissions. Okay, just came up on my phone. That's good, because at least I can see your comments now. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. I'm trying to do 3 things at once here. So it's also excitingly a time of transition, and I'm actually in the process of creating a program for empath entrepreneurs who are ready to take their business online and do the giving of their gifts remotely. So it's a time to bring your best self. It's also a time to allow energies to flow, especially emotional energies. One of the things that creates anxiety, really more than anything else, is resistance to the emotional energies that want to come up. And I'll give you a very brief explanation as to why that is so. Every emotion that you feel, every human emotion that any of us experiences, is like a bell curve. It should be. Its natural flow is like a bell curve. So it rises, it peaks, it begins to diminish, it falls, and it dissipates. Okay, that's the natural life cycle of an emotion. But when we're afraid to feel something, and let's face it, in this culture, we're pain phobic, and we're afraid of emotional pain, not talking about you specifically, but generally in Western culture. And so when the emotion begins to rise, when it gets to this peak, we generally stop it. And when we stop it, it stays stuck there. When it stays stuck there, it'll land in one of your energy centers. For me, it will land in the solar plexus. And that's when discomfort, pain, shaking, trembling, all kinds of things happen when we stop the emotional energy. So we want to allow. Okay. So I'm going to talk about some actual things that we can do, okay? Because I want this to be very practical. The first is take a pause. Being in the present, being in the now, is a place where 99% of the time anxiety does not live. So if you can bring yourself back to the present, and I'm going to give you a very simple process to do that. It's really cool. I learned this a long time ago in my Gestalt therapy training. And it's very simple. You focus on physical body, your physical sensations, and you simply do a stream of statements like this. Now I'm aware of nodding my head. Now I'm aware of licking my lips. Now I'm aware of taking a breath. Now I'm aware of my hair on my forehead. Now I'm aware of my fingertips on the desk. Now I am aware of light coming through the window blinds. Okay, you get it? So bring yourself into your body. When you're in your body, your mind doesn't have the opportunity to start spinning off into scary stuff. So that's a simple one. Second one is I'm gonna many of you know this already, but it bears repeating. The breath. The breath is a way to get you into your body and into the present. So there are many ways to do the breath, many of which you've probably learned, but let's do just 2 ways right now that can bring you back down from an anxious place. And the first is just to do inhale, hold, exhale to a count of 4, 4, 4. So together, inhale to a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's one way to do it. There's another way to do it which will help to stimulate the vagus nerve, which is extremely important in terms of managing anxiety. It's a central nerve in the body. And that rhythm is going to be to a count of 4 inhale, 4 hold, 8 exhale. You want a nice, long, slow exhale. So inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. And now exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. Okay. The next, let's see. Oh, Claudia, benvenuto. Okay, I see so many people are here. I really appreciate all of you here. And I'm taking a breath with you, okay? The fourth simple tip is focus on ordinary things, Feed the birds. Susan, I know you do that every morning, and someone else talked about filling the bird feeder. Walk the dogs. I walk Maya dog in the mornings. Take a drink of water. Phone a friend. Now, here's one that I love to share, and it's about rhythmic activity. So we're talking about knitting, crocheting, anything that has a repetitive rhythm to it. And I'll tell you a short story about Ram Dass, which is so charming. He was giving a lecture one time, and there was a gray-haired lady in the front row, and everything that he said, she was nodding her head in agreement and understanding. So afterwards, he went up to her and he said, I saw that you really got what I was talking about, with respect to meditation and peace. And she said, oh, yes, I crochet. Okay, you get it? So I don't crochet, but I have knitted in the past, but I come from a long line of women who crocheted. My paternal grandmother and my paternal aunts. And so they knew the beauty of that repetitive motion, even just with your hands, just with your fingers, it slips the brain into a different level of consciousness. Okay. Talked about this a little bit, but I'm going to talk about it again. Allow your emotions to flow. If we can get fear out of the way. Look, anxiety is always preceded by any number of emotional responses. It could be full-on grief. It could be sadness. It could be anger. And I will tell you that anger is the first thing that usually covers fear, which is at the bottom of this anxiety pile. And so anything you can do to acknowledge and allow those feelings is going to be extremely helpful. So cry. Just let yourself cry. Hit something. When I was going through my divorce, and oh my God, I had a boatload of anger to deal with. I had a plastic bat, and I would beat the living crap out of my mattress. I tried that recently. I don't have that anger anymore, so it didn't really work. But the other thing, you can get in your car and scream. I was talking with my husband over lunch earlier about a client of his who's really, really anxious right now. She's generally very anxious, and this corona crisis has really pushed her over the top. And I said, one of the things that's really great is get in your car and just scream at the top of your lungs. It's about releasing energy. It doesn't have to have any content. You don't have to even be saying anything, okay? Just rant. If you've got a friend who will listen to your rant, if you don't, then here's something I do. I find this really helpful. I take my phone and I open an email, and I hit the microphone and I just start talking. So I get to rant into my phone, and then I either get to send it to myself or delete it. It doesn't matter, but at that point I've expressed it, okay? You can also write, journaling is really great for this. Here's another one. This is one of my favorites, and that is dealing with the little one inside of you. Making sure that your inner child is being attended to. She's the one who gets really, really scared. She's the one who gets thrown into the closet when the emotions heat up too much. Oh, that's a great suggestion, Renee. Renee says, for those of us who aren't crafty, what about adult coloring books for rhythmic activity? That's fantastic. I love that. Yeah. I do what I call my Ambi Doodles, which is take a pencil in both hands, close your eyes, put them on the paper, let your two hands do whatever they want to do, put the pencils aside, and then look at what you've got, and then start filling in with markers or crayons or whatever. And before you do that, you focus on whatever issue or question you'd like to have some clarity on. This is a very intuitive process I'll talk more about in another Facebook Live. But thank you, Renee, for that. That's great. So back to your little kid, the little one inside of you. Hold her. Find a picture of him or her at a very tender age. I had a picture of myself at about age 6, but that wasn't really young enough. I recently came across a picture of me at about age 3 holding hands up like this with my grandma, my beloved grandma. And that picture just really broke my heart open because I saw how little I was, how little, how young, how innocent, how trusting. Each of us has that part of self, and finding ways to take care of our little vulnerable self. This whole thing we're talking about, the anxiety, the coronavirus, it's all about vulnerability. I put together a meme the other day about vulnerability and how that really is the issue of the day right now. And that in our culture, in Western culture, we are told to just resist and dislike vulnerability. It's like we will do anything not to feel that or not to show that. So, take a minute right now. Let's do just a very, very short guided imagery about your inner little one. So close your eyes. Take a breath or two. And get a mental picture of yourself at a very young age. And let yourself look from your adult self at that child. Look into his or her eyes. Really notice what you see in those expressive eyes. Because at this young age, we're not verbalizing too much about how we feel. Someone said recently, when your child had a tough day, they don't come home and say, I've had a tough day. They say, will you play with me? It's always about, will you hold me? Will you play with me? Will you sit with me? Will you color with me? Can we go outside? Can we take a walk? So I want you to connect with that child. And then check in with your adult self about your level of willingness to understand and act as if that little person is with you every minute of every day, whatever you're doing. When I'm really aware, I will buckle her into the car seat, into the seat next to me when I get in the car. I will make sure that I really, really get that she's with me all the time. Okay, so if there's one thing that you'd like to say to your little one before we close this short little guided imagery, go ahead and do that now. And if you feel to give a hug or a kiss, go ahead and do that. Okay, and then just come back, open your eyes, come back to the computer screen or your phone. So another tip would be, and this may be obvious but maybe not, is remind yourself of other challenges that you have faced and gotten through. This too shall pass is a potent phrase when we're feeling really under the current challenge. The other thing is, if you're spiritually inclined, which I assume that many of you on this call are, ask yourself, what does this awakening challenge mean for you? What's getting triggered? What are you ready to release? What old version of you, past version of you is ready to be transformed into a new iteration of you? I got really hit between the eyes the other day, because look, all kinds of stuff's getting triggered, and my husband and I really never fight. We have a very harmonious relationship, but the other day we were discussing something and he was resisting what I was asking for, and I got so angry, and I cursed at him, which was like insane. So I came into my office and I meditated, and I really got in touch with the fact that that level of anger for me, which I experienced when I was going through my divorce, I had so much anger built up over years from childhood, really. That level of anger indicates one thing for me. I'm in a tremendous amount of fear, and I'm trying to get control. And so I did a process in my meditation, but then I went back to him and I hugged him from behind, and I said, well, I really owe you a hug. I'm sorry. He said, oh, don't worry about it. I took a shower. I let it go instantly. I get it. You know, we're all kind of reacting to one level or another depending on what our issues are. So looking at it from the perspective of, what is this offering me? What is this offering me in terms of my own spiritual awakening? We're not going to stay where we were before this crisis was presented to us. We're being challenged, and how we respond to the challenge is going to make all the difference in terms of whether or not we resist and feel more anxiety, or whether we find some peace with, okay, well, it's time for these changes to happen for me. I guess, is it time for me to be more quiet right now? Is it time for me to spend more time with loved ones? Is it time for me to look at those issues that I've been ignoring or acting as if it doesn't matter? You know what I'm talking about. So really looking at the issue of how is this affecting my spiritual transformation? How is this affecting my spiritual awakening right now? So, and then also I want to acknowledge that there are some practices that are just incredibly helpful. Yoga, Qigong, Tai Chi. I have done all and do all of those intermittently. Some people have a very solid practice of yoga or Qigong or Tai Chi, and that's great. Journaling, that's always been a really big one for me and for a lot of my clients. Let's see here. Okay. Intuitive art, creative art. These Ambi Doodles that I do are really cool. They're easy. They don't require that I draw anything that looks like anything, although I kind of like to do that sometimes when I'm painting. But these are cool because I can posit a question that I want some information about and then just play, just have fun. I mean, I can even do it while I'm watching TV. So, yes, I did say journaling. Music. Stay away from caffeine. If you're prone to anxiety, don't drink coffee. Don't drink caffeinated tea. Don't eat a lot of chocolate. I know that's tough for some. And eat a healthy diet. Okay. I'm going to share another, I think, very powerful tool, which I developed probably a decade and a half ago. And it's called a Theta What If Quantum Questioning Process. So here's what it is. I'll give you a brief explanation and then I'll lead you through a little bit of it. Whenever you are thinking a thought that makes you feel anxious, fearful, depressed, discouraged, okay, that's a low-level thought. This process will help you to take that thought, flip it over into a high-level thought that is encouraging, positive, encouraging, okay? And it will do it without getting massive resistance from your ego. I don't know if you've ever noticed, if you just do affirmations, sometimes the ego is like, oh, geez, give me a break. Okay? This bypasses the ego's resistance to a higher level thought by putting the phrase, what if, in front of the statement. So we're just gently positing. It's possible that. For some reason, the ego doesn't react as strongly to that. And so, and I put that together with tapping. Now, EFT tapping, as somebody mentioned, is very helpful. And if you do EFT tapping, that's great. I have found that bilateral tapping, which is used in EMDR processing, is equally effective. And bilateral tapping just means that you're tapping left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right in a rhythmic way. You could tap up here on your chest. You can tap on the tops of your thighs. You can tap on the desk in front of you. Okay? Very easy and doesn't require remembering the positions. And so let's just take a real simple one. So the low-level thought will be, what if I get, and look, everybody has these catastrophic thoughts every now and then. Oh my God, what if this happens? What if that happens? Okay, so let's take an obvious one. What if I get the coronavirus? Okay, so we're just going to flip it over. And we're going to do some bilateral tapping. Now, when we do this in a more formalized way, I get you into theta first, and I can teach you how to do that. But right now, you're just going to do bilateral tapping. You're going to start tapping left, right, left, right, left, right. And we're just going to say, what if I stay healthy through this whole challenging time? And let's do the next one. What if I do get the coronavirus? It will be very mild, and I will recover. And then I'll be able to help other people. What if the purpose right now of this crisis is to help me evolve into a better version of me? Trying to think of another low-level thought we could have. What if I go stir crazy by having to isolate? What if I find that time alone in my home with my family is very comforting and becomes easy? Anybody have a thought that comes up for them that they would like to use this treatment on? What if? What are you what-ifing about that doesn't feel so good? Well, my neighbor said the other day, what if we can't get food at some point? What if food is just not going to be an issue for me and my family? Now, you can argue that this is just positive la la la, skipping through the tulips kind of thinking, but here's what we're really doing with this process is we're elevating your energetic alignment, we're elevating your thinking, which, as we mentioned before, thought starts here, emotion ends up in your body. So if you elevate your thinking, you're also elevating your emotional response. Okay? So it's a pretty easy process, and somewhere down the road I'll do a Facebook Live that teaches about this process in more depth. Okay, what if it takes longer than they say? That's a great one. So the ego is thinking, oh shit, what if it takes longer than they say? What if no matter how long this crisis takes to resolve, I will put one foot in front of the other and do the best I can? Somebody else said, Susan, what if my retirement money disappears? What if I have the financial resources that I need for the rest of my life? Now again, ego's going to argue with every one of these. All we're doing is shifting the thinking because we are so good at making up catastrophic thoughts. So my position is if you're going to make up shit that feels a whole lot better, okay? What if it gets better and then resurges? Ellen says, okay, what if it gets better and then resurges? What if we all get better and then we are immune to the virus? Again, we're making it up as we go along. That's a made-up thought. So you can say mine is a made-up thought too. The only criteria for judging this process is, does it feel better or does it feel worse? Like my ex-husband used to say, when you go to the eye doctor, his eye doctor, he would say, do you see better or do you see worse? Okay? This is the same thing. However, we're dealing with quantum energetics. And so we're shifting energy. Those of you who know me know I'm very into the quantum of things. I have a group on Facebook called The Art of Miracles, because it's happening in the quantum, and we need to know how to tap into the quantum in order to make the shifts that we want to make, and shifting out of anxiety. And let's face it, we want to shift into peace. We want to be able to relax. We want our bodies to feel comfortable. Jackie says, good shit, I like that. Yeah, I like that too. So let's see. Okay. So I really want to know what your questions are and your concerns. Again, I'll post the links to the blog posts that I mentioned earlier, and also just go to my blog and start scrolling, because I have written so much about how to deal with anxiety and spiritual awakening challenges and all that kind of stuff. I think you'll find a lot of helpful stuff there to read. So let me go back and see if okay, somebody says, what if I'm alone without any family? Okay. What if being alone is going to be challenging for me, but I will use that challenge to evolve? Okay, you feel the shift? And this tapping, because you're in theta when you're doing this process, it's making some monumental shifts. When I did this process this morning, because look, I have a lifelong history of dealing with anxiety, which is at a much, much lower level the last 30 years than it ever has been before. But even getting ready to do this Facebook Live, okay, anxiety isn't always about fear. It's sometimes about excitement, okay? So I was feeling a little, stuff in my solar plexus. And so I sat and I did this what if process in theta. And I immediately start yawning. My eyes start tearing. I mean, big, big yawns. So what you'll find when you do this is a tremendous amount of energy released. That's what we're after. We're after releasing the energy that's bound up with the low-level discouraging thoughts. Okay? There's a lot more to say about that, but again, I'll probably do another Facebook Live sometime soon. Also, I'm going to mention that starting this Friday, I'm going to be doing something called get-togethers on Zoom. And I think my VA will probably have the sign-up page ready sometime later today. But anyway, as soon as she has it ready, I'll put it out there to my list and on Facebook so that you can join me. So we'll be meeting every Friday on Zoom, and we can have discussions like this and just get together and laugh and cry and do whatever. I really am committed to helping us to stay connected. That is extremely important through all of this. My neighbor and I talked yesterday for an hour. I invited her to have a chat. So we brought our lawn chairs out, and we were probably a good 15 to 20 feet apart. The fence was here, and she was on that side, and I was on this side. And we sat down, we just started talking. Now, that's something we would ordinarily do over lunch at a restaurant. But at the end of an hour, she said, oh my gosh, I have to go feed the dogs. And we both said, wow, we really needed this. Really needed to connect and just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Yeah? So, let's see. Okay. So, if you don't have any questions, I want to just talk a little bit more about anxiety and empaths. We are wired for very good reasons, which, in my opinion, we chose before we came into this life. We're wired to be highly sensitive and empathic, which means that we pick up on everything energetically around us. So why did I end up with a nervous stomach, as they called it in those days? Because I was picking up absolutely everything that was going on around me. as kids, we're picking up everything and we don't know what it means. And so, it's like we are filterless, but without enough cognitive understanding to make any sense out of it. And so we just become this receptacle for emotional energy. And of course I ended up with tummy aches. I'm not blaming my parents. I'm not blaming anybody. They didn't understand and might not even still understand. But those of us who are empaths really get how it has cost us to be so tuned in and so caring about what's going on with everybody else. And so one of the main pieces of the work that I do with empath women and some beautiful empath men is about boundaries, about energetic and social boundaries, because we have to learn to take care of ourselves differently. We have to learn that we are responsible for how much gets in. We don't have to be free game for every flow of emotional energy that's flying around. It's number one, it's exhausting. It's discombobulating. It's not healthy. It's stressful. Jackie says Zoom get-togethers sound great. Absolutely. Connection's one of the most important things for me. Me too, Jackie. So I hope I'll see you there. It'll be every Friday until whenever. So acknowledging that as empaths, anxiety is kind of part of the landscape. It really is. And again, nobody told me this when I was a kid. Nobody told me this when I was in my 20s. We're just now over, I don't know, I'm going to say the last decade, but that's being generous. We're just figuring out that we're empaths and what that means. We've always been in touch with our gifts and our ability to know what's going on with everybody, but we haven't really put words on it. It kind of gives me goosebumps because it's a big deal to acknowledge that and to acknowledge, we're wired differently. We're only about 20 to 25% of the general population who are wired this way as empaths. So learning what I call sacred self-care, because you bet your butt it's sacred. It has to be done, because otherwise life is just too freaking difficult for an empath living in the world. So I have a lot more to share about that. And of course, I'm available for private sessions whenever you wish. Let me know. How do I stop being affected by the panic around me, staying apart from the news? Yeah, I'm with you. I don't want to be affected by that either. And so I don't watch the news. I never watch the President of the United States. I constitutionally cannot do that without wanting to throw a shoe through my television set. So it's a very good example of boundaries and limits. Now I have friends whom I believe are empaths, but haven't recognized it, haven't acknowledged it, and they have the news on 24/7, and their anxiety is so high they can't even have a conversation. So consider yourself blessed if you know that you're an empath, if you know that you need to have different limits and boundaries for yourself in order to keep yourself sane and peaceful and healthy, because all of the stress that we're talking about, now let's just put the umbrella of stress over this whole anxiety discussion, that affects us physically. If you really want to strengthen your immune system, find a way to be peaceful, find a way to be joyful, find a way to be in elevated emotion. And man, then you'll find miracles happening. What to do about my anger? Now how this crisis is being handled by certain politicians. Oh dear heaven. That's a very good question. I'll tell you my take on it. And believe me, I'm not immune to feeling infuriated and murderous about the lies. And then I remind myself, the person in the White House at the moment is playing a soul role, S-O-U-L role, which is absolutely precisely designed to wake us the fuck up. Now, I have enough information about that role that he's playing, and I have enough information about my visceral emotional response to it. I don't need to have it in my face every day. But I acknowledge that it's apparently necessary. Apparently we're pretty damn stubborn, and so we needed something like him in the White House and the coronavirus. You know, somebody posted a meme on Facebook the other day that just said, you know, it's like Mother Nature said, I think you need to go to your room and think about what you've done. Okay? I get it. We were complaining about the environment and this and that and the other thing, but we weren't effectively managing those crises. We weren't doing things effectively to change them. So this whole situation, the anger about certain politicians and the way they're handling this crisis, and frankly, the way they've been handling a lot of stuff, is a wake-up call. I mean, whenever I find myself being triggered massively again and again and again, I just said on Facebook the other day, I don't know about you, but I am so sick of hearing myself say, why doesn't somebody do something about him? Oh my gosh, there he goes again, etc., etc., etc. It's like we're a bunch of old broken records. I don't want to do that anymore. And so making a decision that you don't want to do that anymore, look, if what it comes down to is voting in November, okay, I'm not completely convinced that that's the answer, but we do the best we can, and I do think we need to protect ourselves from over consumption of the news. How do we deal with those that aren't being awakened? I'll tell you exactly how we deal with that. The spiritual sages have said this from the beginning of time. Everybody on the planet doesn't need to be awakened. If a certain percentage are awakened, the rest will get yanked up by their celestial ponytails. It will be a wave. That's why I've been referring to it as a tipping point for the last decade. We're very close to the tipping point. Pay attention to all those people who are changing their minds about a number of issues, and we're not even close to done with this yet. So we don't have to worry about those that don't seem to be awakened, because they will be pulled along with the rest of us. Look, the other thing for us empaths to acknowledge is that we're filters. We're doing transformational work that requires a strong stomach and a strong spirit, and we're doing it not only for ourselves, but for everyone on the planet who can't do it for themselves. I'll say it again. We are doing the transformational work. We are doing the spiritual alchemy, not only for ourselves, but for everyone on the planet, for the collective who cannot do this for themselves. Okay? So, so yes, the get-togethers will start on Friday. I'll be posting a link to that. If any of you are interested in private sessions with me, I've been working on the phone and on Zoom for 20 years, so that's the way I work. And let me know if you want to book something with me. And the other thing that I'm putting together, probably maybe another month before I roll this out, is Empath Entrepreneurs 2.0, Healing Online in the World. There are many empath entrepreneurs who who need to bring their businesses online, because that's what's happening now. And I am very good at helping with that process. So I'm really looking forward to that. Actually, that's gonna be rolled out after. The next thing I'm rolling out is I many years ago I wrote a little online course called "Who Signed Me Up for This?" And it's kind of a journaling course, but I'm going to be doing a 3-group session intensive along with it, with the option to also have a private session with me. So there's some exciting things coming down. And I'm committed to keeping us connected. That's what the get-togethers are going to be about. I invite all of you to keep an eye out. If if you're not on my email list, just go to janicemasters.com, and there is a rather annoying pop-up that will come up frequently. Just put your email address and your name in there, and you'll be on my email list, and you'll be the first to know to get the link to sign up for the get-togethers and anything else that I'm putting together. So, more questions? We have a few more minutes. Let's see. Oh, Stacy, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure. This is my purpose. My purpose is to teach what I know that could be helpful to others, and it really fills me up. I know that there are people on this call from all over the world, and it brings me to tears. But I want to say ciao to Lilo and to Claudia, my two cousins in Italy. Claudia I met 21 years ago when we went there, 22 years ago. Lilo I've not yet had the pleasure of meeting, but we will one day. Un giorno. So, I think I'm going to close. When I finish this, come back to the comments, because I will have posted the links to those 3 blog posts that I think are pretty important for you to read if you want. And also, I will share with you that if you go to my website, there's a page called Resources. And on that page, there are some ebooks that I've written over the years. One is called 10 Tips for Healing Heartbreak, because we are heartbroken. And another one is called Healers Healing Their Own Heartbreak. And there are a few others, but they're all free. They're my gifts to you. So, oh gosh, Susan, bringing me to tears. She says, thank you so much, Janice. I'm already much less jittery. Great, great. Let's keep the dialogue open. Come on to the get-togethers, because we can keep talking about this stuff and keep, supporting you. Thanks, Barbara, for being here. Okay. So this is Janice Masters, the Shaman Mama, signing off for now. I will do another Facebook Live sometime soon, but in the meantime, I'll see you Friday in our get-together. Yes, thank you. Rest easy in Italy. Yes, absolutely. Okay. I love all of you. I so appreciate you being here with me. If it weren't for you, I couldn't do the teaching that I love, and this is lifeblood for me. I love you so much. Please, all of you, take good care. Take good care of your families. Be safe, be well. Know that you are loved. Bye-bye.